Hi, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear me. My name is Nicole Eggleston. I'm a graphic and UX UI designer, and this is Understanding the Design Process webinar. So, I'm also looking at the Discord chat too. So, if you can't hear me, let me know. But yeah, let's get started. So, just a little bit about me. I am located on the US East Coast in Baltimore, Maryland, specifically. I graduated with a UX experience certificate in 2021 with a master's in integrated design at the University of Baltimore. I freelanced during the pandemic to gain experience in graphic design as well as UX UI, and that included some research as well as prototype building. And some of my hobbies include reading romance and fantasy novels, as well as watching like video game plays of the God of War series and watching financial audit videos. So today we'll be going over Flav. It was a project that I worked on in 2020, like literally right as the pandemic was starting. And it is a dining and incentive app created in the DMV area. So I know most of the restaurants on this app are located in Baltimore as well as DC, but they hope to expand. And it is supposed to help people kind of gamify their experience at local restaurants. So you would take pictures and you earn points so you can get gift cards at different locations or also like even Sephora. And it's providing non-publicized feedback to the restaurant. So you can leave a review in a sense when you also post your picture um, to the for the restaurant to see without it being public. So it won't be on Google reviews. It won't be on Yelp. But they have a feed in their system that the restaurant can see, and then you can filter and find happy hour specials, find Black-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, as well as LGBTQIA friendly restaurants. So Flav's model was based off of like a freemium platform. So think of Spotify, where now Spotify is starting to include tiers. So of course, the free plan of it is you get to create playlists, but you won't be able to like repeat songs. It just plays on shuffle. But if you start to pay, you get additional features as well. So their idea was any local dining establishments that weren't considered like a restaurant chain, like let's say McDonald's or a TGI Fridays or something like that, was automatically enrolled in their system. However, you would get the most out of the application if you subscribe to like one of their tiers. So restaurants could promote new dishes and discounts by adding items to the menu so people can redeem Flav Cash, which was kind of like their currency in the app. And then the items would show on a map for Flav users to find and redeem points within the area. So if you lived 5 minutes away from one of the restaurants and you decided, hey, instead of using like DoorDash or Grubhub, that will charge restaurants to use those apps, to get more clients, you could instead dine in instead of carry out. And then you receive a discount, which I thought was pretty cool. So our project brief, because I worked with the team and the project was for about 12 weeks. We had to figure out what we were going to do, if we were going to focus on the consumer side or if we were going to focus on the restaurant side. And we wanted to help restaurants receive more patrons, especially since this is more effective now after the pandemic, since a lot of restaurants we know were closed and the food service industry wasn't doing so well because of COVID-19. So our team had to figure out like, what problems or challenge do we have to solve? Like, who are the stakeholders and how would we execute the solution? So, like I said, we could decide whether or not we wanted to do the restaurant onboarding process or if we just focus on the consumer side, which means like you would go into the app, sign up have an account and sign up. How would that look? Um, how would the interface look? How would you be able to redeem your points? Whereas in the restaurant side for onboarding, how is it easy for restaurant owners to be able to add menu items and create social posts? so it can go directly to the Fave feed. And then who are the stakeholders, right? Flav had this business model of freemium, the freemium tier. So we had to think of Flav as our client, but also what about the restaurant owners? How would it be easier for them to implement this plan so they can get patrons in their door? And then, of course, we decided to then move to the restaurant onboarding side, which was what we did to execute the solution. So for project goals, we wanted to kind of make it as easy as possible for the staff at the restaurant to be able to redeem these points for the customers. We wanted to limit decision making. We wanted to have one click access to push marketing ideas to the Flav feed. So if you had a new dish coming up, let's say you were trying something new, we wanted to be able to promote that within the app instead of using like a third party like Adobe design software, Canva, or something like that. Some of our the quick view of the Flav users' impact on the business side would provide data reports. So we wanted to see who was looking at that post. Did that dish do well, especially if they were trying something out, and also to see who was a first time visitor at that restaurant. Some of the possibilities that Flav wanted to include it again was the registration and dashboard for restaurant onboarding. They wanted to include that, but they didn't have it fully fleshed out. Um, so they were hoping that one of the teams would do it. They wanted to also incorporate real-time location, like updates for food truck owners and patrons. And they wanted social media sharing for foodie influencers. So people who like certain food trucks or like certain restaurants, they wanted to have like a space for influencers there. And then we had suggestions that we thought would fit the app best. So brand collaborations with point of sale systems. So think of like Square when you go to certain restaurants, and they've set up through their Square site, North Touch, things like that. We wanted to be able to have kind of like a third party app system that you might see where if like I'll use Zoom for example. Zoom has some third party app connections that you're able to hook up with for a seamless flow. We also wanted to offer like Flav Cash rewards to patrons who follow food truck social accounts, just to give them extra incentive to follow them and to stop there to buy food. And then also we wanted to integrate a sharing feature, so that you could share not just only within the app, but also outside. So it would go to a third party like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, where most foodie influencers exist in that space. So for the initial research and design, and I have some some visuals over here. My sketch that I did that eventually turned into a prototype. So we actually reached out to people who worked in the food service industry. There were a couple local restaurants near the school that I visited, and I had a chance to talk to someone who was a cashier that helped, do the transactions to see what worked best for their business. And then we had a couple other places, I think, also in like Texas, where we asked questions like, "How does loyalty programs work?" Since some businesses do a hole punch card or something like that saying like, oh, if you do 10 purchases here, you'll get another meal for free or something like that. So we wanted to see how could that exist within Flav or another app. We realized that the onboarding process and restaurant dashboard needed to be simple enough because in a restaurant, servers are going back and forth. They only have a certain amount of time to, do checks and serve food and get drinks. So we wanted to be able to make sure it was easy enough for them to accept Flavor users' redemptions. And that's what we mostly focused on. And then my side of the project, because I was in a team of four, I did what the Flayfeed preview would look like for the restaurant staff to view to make sure that their promotional ad was seen in the app. And I'll also show the final design and what we went with towards the end of this presentation. So Right here is the user flow of what we thought the restaurants might run into on the app. We have the Flav restaurant login, and then we have profile analytics, campaigns, the Flav feed, and the menu items. So the profile is exactly like you could put in your location, you could put in your phone number, and you could put in your open and close times. The analytics is where you would see when you have campaigns. That you wanted to run. So if you had a campaign for Cinco de Mayo or Happy New Year, you would be able to filter that out. The ads were where you could create posts. So you could post them to the Flay feed or on outside platforms, like I said, Facebook and Twitter. And so you were able to look at the projects that you have published and didn't quite complete, so drafts. And then you had new campaigns where you could look at templates um, that that you could look over and easily create. Maybe it'll take like a few minutes out of the day. You can preview it, you can set the campaign duration, and then you could publish it to the Flay feed. The Flay feed was to see the ad in real time, as well as be able to review the menu, and also for people to redeem Flav Cash once they take a photo, of course. And then the menu items was to, edit or add menu items and prices. So, like I said, if you have a new meal that you wanted to include, or you wanted to change a price on a drink or a dish, you people had the opportunity to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to take a few more seconds for everyone to look at that. And then for the final design, like I said, we worked on this project for 12 weeks, and we did have um, moments where we had to create a initial design and prototype for us to get feedback from our peers, as well as my teacher and the client. Um, we had to make the necessary adjustments to make sure our design was aligned with each other. So because it was four people, we all took the time to take on different sections. Like I took on the Flay Feet preview. So my design looked a little different than my team members, which isn't really, it's not really a good thing to do that when you are working with a client. You want to make sure that everything is consistent with the brand language, with, color, typography, iconography, which some of those things were provided by the client, like the iconography and everything. But we had to create some new things. And so, you know, some of us had taken the opportunity to do the profile section, the analytics section. So that looked a little different than the design, the campaign design aspect. So once we made the necessary adjustments, of course, because when we presented the final piece or the final project to the client, we wanted to make sure that it was as ready to go for them to take some of those elements and implement it into what they already had. Okay, so I am going to now move on to just to show you what we did as a team for the final design. So hopefully everyone can see this. Um, we end up using Axure as our design method. We only use Axure because the client was already using it and they were familiar with it. I think overall as a team though, it was a little hard to use for some of us. I think we decided like if we were to do this project over, maybe we would have chosen Adobe XD. At this point in time, Figma wasn't as prominent as it is now, but we probably would have chose also Figma too, just because of how seamless it is and how more, I guess, user friendly. So right here is the profile section I was talking about. My team member Monica created this, and I also have hotspots too. So if you ever want to look at this for future reference, I can always share this link with you, and then you can always select the hotspots if you would like to go through the design. But yeah, so right here, she created this profile. She included restaurants that she owned, and then also like user information of who had the opportunity to log in. So this was just a quick view of the analytics to see, who were the Flav users, how many, came into the restaurant, just certain behaviors that we wanted to include as well, saying, how many used the discount, how many just got a regular catalog item, and, who had Flav Cash, who uploaded a photo, who checked in. We were hoping that all of that would include like the user experience for the consumer, like for the customer side, um, where they could check in and also get extra points as well. And then we also had demographics. We wanted to include that, just to see a kind of a age range in a sense of who was more likely to dine in. That would have been, I think, a great analytic um, for Flav to use, so that the restaurants know kind of who to target their ads to. In a sense of how you would do Facebook, right? With a Facebook ad, you would put a certain demographic in a certain region. You could also do a certain age range. And that might be more aligned to what, they believe in, or, what they're used to seeing. And also like travel mileages as well. Like, how far does a user have to go to visit your restaurant? Are they more inclined to visit your restaurant again if it's in within a certain 5 mile or 20-mile radius? And then we talked about foodies in the house. So who your biggest influences are, who has used the most Flav Cash, who has redeemed it, who has checked in. But we also have this filter button at the top where you can just select the different dates of when you put out certain things, or when Flav users would come in, and just see, you'll be able to see in real time how that data changed. So the next part was the campaigns, right? So we looked at things like Canva as an example of trying to build that within the app. I think that's a great example. It's kind of almost what I do now, which is kind of funny, where we take templates and we upload it for our agents at the company that I worked at. But we wanted to also include this for the restaurants. Maybe it's a little easier for a manager or maybe even a staff member to create something that's really simple. So right here, you would be able to click on a design template, change out the photo. You have different photos here. Select it, change out the name and say, oh, I want to do something for Cinco de Mayo. Oh, it's at this restaurant and I want to select a certain date of when I'm going to run this campaign. And then, you put your copy in there in a sense. Um, and then you can save to your projects, or you can preview it to see what it looks like. Um, and then you had an option to do save, cancel. You could do a set campaign duration. So if anything, if you're thinking about a business and someone having an event, you want to make sure that they have enough time to promote the event that they're doing, right? So for this, if you want to say you're doing it for a couple days, you may want to start promoting that a week or two in advance, probably even 3 weeks to get the notice out there. So let's just say this. Oh, and then say push to the feed, and then run the times. Um, you select check and say, oh no, you're running another event at the same time. But you should be able to have this like 2 different events or 3 different events running at the same time, to schedule. And then we would push or publish to the feed. So you have an opportunity to like push it to the Flav feed or push it to Instagram or Facebook. And then this is what it would the ad would pop up on the Flav feed itself saying like, oh, Costa Rico just added a new event. So you could filter that, since you just saw it, just to see, you could filter and say, oh, what's new? And you see like, oh, Cinco de Mayo special. That's great. And you see the ad that was posted. You could see the special menu that they had, and I included a hover feature. So of course, like, if you're on your phone, you would just hold your thumb over it just slightly, and it would change the price, or like to see, oh, Flav Cash is only 25, so that means the meal cost or the drink costs $9. Um, you would be able to call for reservations, like find out more information, and then you would check in to redeem. So, you would take a picture, post it to the feed, and then you would get a notification that says, hey, you just redeemed like 100 Flav Cash and it's been added to your account. And also, because if you're a foodie, you would want to publish it. Like I said, you would want to publish it to Instagram, or maybe you're more popular on Twitter. So you would automatically hit that button and then say it was shared to your tweet. Your shared tweet was sent to your Twitter feed. So that's kind of the what we created, in a sense. And I also want to say, like, there were other things, um, that where this didn't look like the final design. So I have just some additional pictures. Like I said, you've already seen the sketch, but some of these designs was what I initially created, and then I had to go back and kind of change like the color palette, as well as include the campaign that one of my team members had created as well, to make sure that everything looked consistent with what we had created as a team. Uh, so I believe that is all for this part of the talk, and I am also now ready to take on some questions that you may have, maybe going a little bit more depth of the thought process behind what we did as a team, and as well as some things that Flav may have taken as well. So I just want to show this slide again to show that maybe some of our ideas as a team were put into the final product. I know this product was launched, I believe, in 2021, so we were still in the middle of a pandemic. Um, the contact that we had at the time, he was also from the University of Baltimore, but I don't think he's still a part of that. But I do know that there are active people on the app, and I know that I think even creating an app, and I think you should be able to download it if you have an Apple, iPhone or Android, just to be able to look at it. And I think you'll get Flav Cash even when you start to sign up. I know when I did it, I got like 20 Flav Cash. Um,
Okay, thank you
so yeah.
very much for your presentation. And this is a great opportunity to ask some questions, or if you have any comments or you want to say thank you, you're free to do that as well. You could either unmute your mic or you could use the text channel to ask your questions. So I'll give everyone a moment to think about it. And I guess I have a question actually. um, when I don't know if you mentioned this already, but when it came
Mhm.
to user research, like how did you find users to research for your product?
Oh, that's a great question. So I don't think we were able to do that part where once we created the prototype. I believe we might have sent it to one person that we had interviewed that worked in the food service industry. The one that was in Texas, I believe, may have seen the prototype um, when we initially designed it, and then I think she also gave feedback. So I do want to preference that too. That this project also wasn't fully in depth with user research while we were designing, but we kind of had to find our own people, um, as you would do anyway on a user research project. But yeah, I think the person that we talked to in Texas, I think she looked at it. So she was telling us what made the most sense when it came to like food service, and how fast does someone have to like do a coupon or something like that.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering that.
Oh yeah.
I also have another question.
Hmm.
Um, I'm kind of curious to know from the stakeholders' point of view, like how do they know how many people are using their app? Um, like what kind of analytics do they get from their users?
So, um, I think while they were designing this, because it really was in the early stages, hence why they reached out to us at University of Baltimore, especially in the classes, right? So I think they were just finding it out from their finding that information out from family and friends. But I think now they probably are looking at users, and it's not like there are active users on there. It may not be as normal as you would see like on Instagram or something like that. But I'm pretty sure they're pulling analytics of like who signed up within the last few days. And they're probably doing that. They're a very small team, so they're probably finding that information in-house. I haven't had much contact with them since I've done this project, so it's kind of hard to say. But I believe they should be pulling information like that, either not just from the users, but also from the restaurants as well, since they are partnering with local Baltimore restaurants.
Hmm.
So they should be finding out from them firsthand if the app is worthy to continue or not.
Okay,
Hopefully that answers your question.
gotcha. It did. Thank you.
Okay.
Ashley
Uh-huh.
B has a question, and they say, "What is one thing that you would change or do differently now that you have more experience?"
Oh, that is a really great question. So, one of them, definitely, what I mentioned is just the design software that I used or that the team used. Like I said, it wasn't as user friendly. Some of our team members ranged in age, so where it be maybe easier for me to catch on or someone else to catch on, it was harder for some of our teammates to figure that out. Um, whether that was lack of design knowledge or not. I think also having more meetings on like during the design process to make sure that everything was consistent. I think we had a certain amount of time to meet during the project. So I think if we communicated more, if we share our designs more, I think that would have helped keep it consistent from the beginning where we wouldn't have had to make that many changes and focus on other things like maybe fully fleshing out the analytics part or maybe not focusing as much as trying to schedule a campaign, maybe actually doing user research to see how our initial prototype would have worked.
Gotcha. Hopefully that answered the
Mhm.
question.
Yeah.
Um, does anyone else have any other questions they'd like to ask? Feel free to unmute your mic, or you could also use the text channel as well. Also, to kind of add to the conversation, um,
Mhm.
I know when it comes to like building prototypes and stuff like that, I think there is like a misconception with some junior designers where they think that a lot of companies or even startups have like all the resources available to do a lot of deep research. So I'm kind of wondering, what are the best things to do if research isn't in the budget? Like, how can you still make pretty good design decisions without relying on, interviewing hundreds and hundreds of users to validate things?
Well, that's a really great question. So if it's not in the budget, right? The first thing I think designers would do is always reach out to their sphere of influence, to your friends and family who are willing to help you, as well as other team members. Maybe that's outside of, let's say, your department. Even if you get a little bit of feedback, like let's say instead of you want to do hundreds and hundreds of people, you could maybe do ten people, and that ranges in age. Maybe you reach out to your grandparents who are not, actually tech savvy. Maybe you reach out to your best friend who is really tech savvy, right? Having at least different age groups who has limited design knowledge or even use certain things, I think would help create just better designs overall because you're also making it accessible, right? Something that you would give a 20-year-old be able to use and someone that that maybe can use it with like on the whim may not be someone who is not as fast like someone who's in their 60s or 70s. Like as long as you are able to have that thought process in mind to say, "Mm, I need to make my designs fit for everyone." I think that would help you progress more as a designer because then you'll start to look up research of what works for accessibility when it comes to designing and then progressing your design skills. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, it did. Um, Also, I'm kind of curious to know, did you follow any kind of heuristics when designing your wireframes?
Okay. Um, that's a really great question. I'm trying to actually think back too because we did this in 2020, and I think that's what we were learning in the class was the different heuristics. So I want to say yes. I can't even think of them off the top of my mind, but because we it was so fresh then, we definitely considered them. Um, I think yeah, we definitely considered them at the time. I can't even think right now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay.
But yeah, I do want to say that we were just learning about them. It was kind of like an early set on class for this program. So they wanted to make sure that that was kind of ingrained while we were doing this project. So I do want to say yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, totally understood. I
Yeah.
mean, when I was starting out
Yeah.
learning about UX design, I didn't even know what heuristics really meant, but following
Mhm.
them is sort of like it's sort of like the stuff that I learned about graphic design and illustration when I was in art school, which is like as long
Mhm.
as your design is structured in a way that you could see clear hierarchy, the contrasts are strong, so even if you don't know the terminology for it and you're already doing that kind of like habit of making sure that your design is consistent, then you are following like a heuristics. But yeah, it looks like you have been considering that with the design of the app itself. Um, so I like how minimal and clean it is, and you can use side scrolling to browse more content. I think that helps with like focus and attention, rather than having like a grid of like 12
Mhm.
different like features all in front of your face. So yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you use those kind of heuristics in your wireframes. Okay, so Ashley B
Yeah.
has.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry, I don't mean to cut off.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, like, we didn't want to overwhelm the restaurant user. Like I said, they already have a lot on their mind, right? Like a restaurant owner is making sure, they have inventory every day, they making sure they have enough wait staff every day, who's covering what. So we wanted to kind of think of it as like ease of mind. Like it shouldn't be harder to promote their meals or certain discount items for them. It should be like not secondhand nature, but at least close to it. So they would use the app more to promote their stuff more so they could get more patrons in the door.
Gotcha, makes sense. Okay, and Ashley B has a question. They ask, at the time, were there
Mhm.
any competitive analysis that could be completed? I guess they're asking about your experience with this project. Did you do a competitive analysis with the client?
So not with this project, no. But they did have reference like Grubhub and DoorDash and Uber Eats as like some of their competitors because it was kind of the reverse of that, right? So like with DoorDash and Grubhub, that's mostly for delivery and pickup, where this app focused on more dine-in. So they definitely thought like they would be an outlier in the space. And they were also trying to focus on that freemium model of like not wanting to charge the restaurants that amount of money. I know that certain restaurants, especially in my area, they notate it within DoorDash like their prices might be higher than if they were in store. So even right there is they're telling you that DoorDash must charge a certain amount of money for them to even have their menu accessible for, let's say, Dash Pass users or DoorDash or Dash drivers. So I'm not we're not the ones that did it, but I think the contact that we did have, I think he probably did a competitive analysis because he also was a UX researcher and designer.
Yeah, that's something that's a fair point to mention that, as UX designers, you think that, okay, everything is in your court where you do the research, you interview the users, you do the competitive analysis. Sometimes you might work with clients where they do their own research and they have their own competitive analysis. And I've definitely have talked to other clients that think they have done a lot of good research, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do the vague or like very generalized level of research. So yeah, that's something to like keep in mind that like every client is going to be a little bit different. Maybe bigger companies or organizations, they would have a lot of data points and analytics for their competition. And for a small business, they might not have like all that detail. And sometimes it's not always possible for you to like get that information as well. So,
Mhm.
for example, I've had a client before where they've interviewed a few other users and they validated things their own way. So I wasn't
Mhm.
allowed to look at the data behind that. I had to basically design without really looking at a lot of the data. So don't
Yeah.
worry if that's what happens when you get a freelance client. Like every freelance client is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes you'll have all the data and analytics to work off of, and sometimes you don't have any. So yeah, just something to keep in mind.
Oh yeah, and that's a great point because also where I worked on a freelance project where we did do the research where we had interviewers with people for a certain I think fast food chain and they were trying to enhance their I guess they're different franchisees. Like they were trying to like enhance their customer experience. And they said that we found out after the fact that they had all of that research, but they didn't really synthesize it to the point. If we're making the same statements, if the same thing keeps happening, something obviously isn't going right. Where you're continuously looking for this research and then you're not wanting to make the changes, or you yourself as a designer you may not have full contact with that client either, where you may have to go through your manager or someone else that's kind of conducting the research, and if they're not finding that information for you to design, that kind of that kind of halts the project in a sense, not fully. Like you could still do wireframes and you could still do initial prototypes, but if it's not meeting the client's needs and it's kind of only meeting their wants, that's not really helping the user experience side of it. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely something true. I think it's difficult to work around it because if you're a junior starting out, there isn't like a clear guideline of like this is what you should do to get more
Mhm.
like to get your clients or your team on board with research and to do more deeper research. It always depends on budget and it depends on whether or not the team they value the same things. So
Mhm.
if you are a UX researcher and you need more data to validate certain things, that would help you to design a better process or a better flow for your users. You could try to, I guess, pitch that idea to the stakeholder and just try to convince them and say, hey, you know what, in order for this like product to really be successful, like we need to validate something about the user's experience. So if you try to broach it to them as like, hey, this is something that's preventing me from doing my job as best or as effectively as I can, this is why it's important, maybe try to get some buy-in that way so that once they understand what barriers are preventing you from finishing your job successfully, they'll understand and try to like work to kind of like reach the same goals, if that makes sense. Um, that's the way that I would look at it. I don't know how you would look at it, Nikki, but how would you go about
Mhm.
convincing stakeholders, hey, we should do more research in this area?
Oh, I think you would have to find. I think of it kind of in a weird way, not fully, but I think you would have to find like initial evidence, something that that the stakeholders or the clients would have interest in, besides just like building this product. Like you would have to do outside research, see if you could pull some data that's like willing to show them, hey, we need to do this kind of research, maybe because a competitor is doing this kind of research.
Mm-hmm.
Like um certain businesses, they're always in competition with each other, which competition is good, so they're always trying to one up one another. So if you can find that research, let's say you have connections on LinkedIn or something like that where they just did a certain case study and that's similar to what you're trying to do, maybe you could see if you can get access to that research, even if it's just like a synopsis of it, and then try to present that to the stakeholders to say, hey, your competitor is doing this, and we're also trying to do the same thing, but we want to make this process better so people come to us more for that. I think that kind of helps engage the stakeholder more into the project, which then, of course, helps the business out more.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's a really great idea.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Um, I think Ashley B.
Hmm.
So, since there was a mention of freelance clients, what has been your best practice advice to find or retain clients? That's a really great question. So I happen to find clients through LinkedIn. I think a lot of people were using LinkedIn during the pandemic. And I mean, we were also using Discord and other things like that to create these spaces to grow our networks. They usually say your network is your net worth. So I was reaching out to people, I was joining groups like this. I was joining webinars, and people have reached out to me just based off of that those webinars, saying like, "Hey, I know that you're a designer," and I was an up and coming designer, so I was still learning everything, like what prices to set at, contracts, things like that. So of course, is once you've made that connection, you want to sit down with the client and go over their needs and wants, right? Focus on the needs first and then eventually focus on their wants of what they, are trying to do. Maybe they're trying to get more clients. Um and then, meet with them every so often that you can if you're doing a project, if something comes up, communication is key when trying to retain clients. If you're designing something and you don't hear from your client, let's say it's a week past or something like that, or even within a couple days, maybe they're wanting to know how this design process is going. Maybe they're wanting to know what their research processes look like. You need to let them know at almost at every stage what you're doing so they know that they're getting their money worth out of you too, because that's what the whole thing is about. Of It's a business transaction. They want to know if they're getting their money's worth. So communication is key, and it took me a long time, so I'm not it's definitely easier said than done. If you're not someone that overtly communicates, that might be a skill that you have to work on. But even now in my current job, so I work at Northrop Realty, which is a real estate brokerage in the Mid Atlantic region, and it's almost like an agency. We have 400 agents that need design work from time to time. I want to say like maybe about a quarter or a third of them request design work, and even though we have our internal process of how we proof things, sometimes the agents just want to know if, hey, I sent in this request 5 days ago. I know that your turnaround time is 7 to 10 days, but I haven't heard anything from my designer. What's going on? They want that reassurance that you're working on their project, that you're meeting their design requirements, and then they want to know, when can they get their project. So I would say definitely communication um, is probably one of the best practices you can do. One throughout life, but also while you're doing your design projects and research projects.
Totally. 100% agree with that. Also, to add on to that, when it comes to finding new clients, I don't know if you guys heard of the platform Contra, but yeah, a few of my friends have used that
Mhm.
platform to display their portfolio, to find new gigs. So if you're interested, I think it's free for anyone to join, but I think you could also pay for a subscription, just to have access to premium features. But it's a really
Mm.
cool way to kind of like target the kind of clients that you want. You could focus on certain types of industries you want to work in, or certain types of clients that you want to work with, the types of work that you want to do, especially.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's called Contra. I think I could find a link for you. Um,
Never heard of that. It's pretty cool. I used Upwork, which has its ups and downs. Like if you're an upcoming designer, like I said, you kind of don't know where to start at for your prices. I think that kind of works. There are probably better platforms out there, like probably Contra or Fiverr. I know some people use Fiverr. Um, but like I said, most of my connections have been LinkedIn, but also you can also reach out to certain recruiters too, um, to see if
Oh,
you could get freelance work as well.
yeah. I've actually used a few agencies to get work. They're I think they're nationwide, like across America and Canada.
Hmm.
So
Oh, okay,
24/7,
cool.
they do a lot of creative job placements and they also do UX design as
Hmm.
well. And then the creative
Hmm.
group, which is like I think a subsidiary of Robert Half. So they're a really
Yeah,
big,
I've heard of them.
yeah, they're a well-known global agency. So definitely check those
Hmm.
places out. The only caveat I would have to mention is that when you go for agencies, sometimes they're very particular. They might only pick people that have lots of experience. So if you have less than 3 years of experience, it might be, 50-50 chance that you will be picked up. Um, and when it comes to Upwork, I've used Upwork before and I have
Hmm.
experience and I found it very difficult to find a client. Everyone's experience is different. So, like I said, you have all these options. You have Upwork, you have Fiverr, you have Contra, you have all these other agencies. Just try any of them and see if it works out for you. Because as long as you're spreading yourself out in different networks, just like you said, it just increases your chances of landing a gig.
Yeah, yeah. With the creative group, I've reached out to them, but like you said, it is like a kind of a 50-50 chance, and it's probably because I had limited experience. But there's also Sella and Aquint, if I'm pronouncing it. I think I had more access to people from Sella. And I'll see if I can put a link. Um,
Yeah, Aquint and also
yeah, Aquint,
vitamin
yeah.
T.
Oh yes.
It looks like Anna has provided us a link in the chat. Thank you for that.
I think I can also do. That's a big that's a big link. But yeah, I've had more contact, I think, with Sella. I think I had two recruiters kind of reach out kind of within the same time span of each other, and I was like, well, I already have a connection. And it was like, okay, great. They once you do get a job with them, they'll check in with you for like, I want to say, your first week to make sure everything is okay. And then they say, you can keep in contact with them um once, if you're looking for more work. Oh, there you go, Melanie. Thanks. um, so yeah. But I know Aquint, I think they have a few positions I think I saw recently, and some of them are remote. So that's what I do like about those two websites, is that um they have a filter option if you want to be remote. And then they have requirements. It's definitely better than sometimes LinkedIn, LinkedIn search, where even if you see something that's remote, it says in the job description that it's not. So hopefully that helps you guys.
Gotcha. I'm actually checking out Sella. Is it only jobs within the US or is it also in Canada as well?
That is a great question. So just the most that I have seen, but some of them do specify like if they're looking on the East Coast and West Coast, if that helps more. I've because I was just looking, I've only pursued ones that are in within the US.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, I have US clients before, they're awesome, but
Hmm.
sometimes there are some remote jobs where it's like, oh, only US only, so remote, but
Hmm.
only for Americans. So that's why I was
Right,
asking.
yes.
Yep. So hopefully that has been really helpful to you guys. Um, do you, well, does anyone have any questions uh, for a speaker? Okay, so Sirikwan asks, I work in a payroll and the location specific remote positions may have to do with taxes. Yeah, it might be to do with that. Um, it could be for other reasons, and I'm not sure. But definitely, I've had clients in the UK. Usually, if they're paying for anyone, they would always have to pay taxes locally if they're doing any kind of remote work. But again, it could be complicated for other reasons. I'm not from America, so I don't know all the laws. But yeah, that definitely could be a
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah, so I had a internship that kind of turned into a full-time job with a nonprofit in Ireland, and they were kind of they wanted to come to America, like open an office and everything to have um a US branch. Um so it depends on your, your state, but yeah, I did have to pay taxes and everything. But like I said, it really depends on your state, to see that percentage. Like if you're freelancing and you're a 1099 contractor, make sure you set enough money aside, to pay taxes either quarterly or annually. Because I know that might not be on everybody's mind, but as you're learning as a designer, you're learning everything from contracts to set pays and things like that. So um
Oh yeah, definitely.
I would, yeah,
Yeah, definitely
sorry.
check out the tax laws within your own area, because definitely as a freelancer, it really depends. Like in my province, um, if
Mhm,
you only after you earn a certain amount of money per year, like I think it's above 40,000 or whatever that you're doing freelance, then you have
mhm,
to start
mhm,
paying taxes. But definitely check that out because every single state, every
mhm,
area in Canada as well as in the United States, they have their own different laws. So definitely look that up so that you know when you're reporting your income, you're not doing
mhm.
anything wrong.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting that you said over 40, because I think for me, I think if you were in, and I could be wrong, but like I think even if I made over $600, I had to start paying taxes.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
which is a bit of a difference, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like you had to report to the state that you owned a business, whether you were a sole proprietor or LLC. Um, you know, like Melanie said, definitely look within your state, and state and city, because if you live in the city, you also got to pay. Well, depending on the state, you also got to pay city taxes too.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Okay, we're just waiting for some more questions to come in.
Also provide my LinkedIn, everyone. So feel free, like, you can reach out to me on Discord. That might be easier. I'll still respond. But there's my LinkedIn. So if you have any more questions, I also can provide this link. Hopefully, you guys will be able to see this. Do, do, do. So try that link and feel free to look at it or look around, and just see what the team built.
Oh, that's your prototype.
Yeah, that's the prototype.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely. I don't know if you want to do this, but if you want to share your case study, we actually have a channel here on
Hmm.
our server for case studies. It would be really awesome to have like your case study posted so that anyone who's kind of doing a bit of research can see what other designers are doing when it comes to presenting their design projects.
Yeah, let me. Um, yeah, I'll post that.
Yeah, anytime. Not necessarily
Okay.
right now, but like if you feel like
Okay.
doing that, you can.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Cool.
yeah, before we wrap everything up, I'd have to say thank you guys for being here. Thanks for staying until the very end. And just as promised, we're giving away a free book. It's Don Norman's Design of Everyday Things. So if you guys want to claim that reward, just simply DM me. You could DM me now, right now, and send me your email address, and then I can email you the free ebook. So if you're interested in getting that, definitely do that right now. Last but not least, if you haven't considered donating to us or subscribing to us, please do, because we have a design sprint coming up in mid-November. And the great thing about subscribing is that you could spend as little as like $5 a month. All the money goes towards us to help us to continue building design sprints and maintaining this community. And subscribers get to join free, so you don't need to register for a ticket. You could just join the participation link that will drop into special supporters channels, and you can actually join us in design sprints whenever they happen. So consider subscribing or just giving us a one-off donation if you want to. But yeah, that's just an option for you guys. I'm gonna leave the link in the chat so that you guys could do that. Also, if you're not familiar with us on YouTube, definitely join us on YouTube. You could actually find recordings to past webinars. And also, if you want to figure out when we're going to have our next design sprint, you could also follow us on Luma. So if you go to our Luma link, there's like a huge calendar. You can get updates from our emails or our newsletter. So yeah, all that stuff is really good if you want to keep in contact and in the loop of all the stuff that's happening here. So thank you guys, and hope you have a excellent weekend. Also, don't forget Julia's talk is happening tomorrow, so if you guys want to participate for that as well. Julia DeBari is a huge, huge influential UX figure. She's helped build the curriculums of some of the biggest boot camps in the world, so you don't want to miss it. And if you want to register for that, just go right up to the top and click on events, and then you can register to get a reminder. Alrighty, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Surikwan asks, can we share the Luma link on social media? Absolutely, you could share it. Tell everyone. All right, see you. Bye bye.